Hi everyone and welcome back. Hey, firstly, if you saw me on X earlier, apologies, we had some real technical issues earlier today, which means I've decided to make another version of this video, not live, and get it out on YouTube for the benefit of everyone else because it was just proving too technically challenging. For those of you that are joining us on YouTube for the first time, welcome. This is the channel where we talk all about economics, personal finance, and how human behaviour interacts with that, so that you get a really good understanding not only of what's happening in the bigger picture, but also right down at a real practical level, ultimately, so that you can make much better decisions about whatever it is that you do with your own money and your own finances. Today I want to talk about wealth taxes. They're out in the news again at the moment. They're really prominent. There are certain sections of certainly the political media that really want to talk about this an awful lot. And I just want to spend a few minutes unpacking what that is and how it works, so that when the time comes and you're asked to make a decision or offer an opinion on it, you're perhaps able to do so from a slightly more informed perspective. So first of all, I think any sensible person recognises that if you want a civil society to function in the way that we expect it to in this country, you want hospitals, roads, police forces, prisons, schools, etc, etc, etc. There are only certain ways to pay for it. In the UK, we're very unlucky. Well, we're not unlucky. We made some really bad decisions about 40 years ago, which means we no longer have a sovereign, or we never had a sovereign wealth fund that can fund these services for us. We certainly don't get anything like donations and bequeathments in the way that we would need to fund the public purse, which means we have to go to the taxman as a means of raising that money. I don't think that's the political bit. I think that's probably the bit that everyone else recognises to be just, I guess, a sensible position with respect to how we fund public services in this country. Where it does get political, however, is when we start talking about how we do it. It won't be lost on you, I'm sure, that over the last few years, we've seen massive increases in asset prices, home prices, you name it, it's gone up in price. Even things like food and other stuff, it's certainly a lot more than it was a few years ago. And that creates challenges because it means that the ordinary person perhaps can't afford things in the way that they used to do. One of the arguments out there at the moment is that this has created an enormous inequality in society, where you've got a collection of people, typically at the wealthier end, that have got lots of assets, lots of money, all the opportunity that comes with it, because money breeds money and they can do more and more and more and compound that wealth. And then you've got other people who are just struggling to get by week to week, right? Because it's just not going far enough. And the political argument is that we should look at those people who have got more assets, more this, more that, more the other, and we should tax them not against their income in the way that we currently do through the income tax system. We should tax their overall wealth. So if you have a property portfolio worth £10 million, for example, whether you earn income from it or not, the argument is that we should charge you a percentage of that value, so that you have to put more money into the tax system. And in reality, then the knock-on effect that we're looking to get here is that we cause people to sell their assets, to put it into ownership elsewhere, and then they use the money from the sale to pay the tax. And by doing so, in theory at least, prices come down because people are having to sell. There's more money in the public purse, so therefore we can spend it on public services, and the average person can access it at a much more affordable price. The public sector has got more money to spend. We've bashed the billionaires and everybody wins. So the theory goes. But does that really work? And that's the question we've got to ask ourselves. From a behavioural perspective, we've already seen in the UK that significant numbers of net worth millionaires over the last couple of years have left the country. I'm not coming out in anti-Labour policies here. That is a statement of fact. We have seen increased numbers of higher net worth individuals leave the UK than we did over the last few years. First question then, if we're going to introduce a wealth tax, are these billionaires going to, or these multimillionaires, going to continue to stay here, or are they going to move elsewhere where their assets are protected? Because let's be honest, with the best intentions in the world, despite what some people will tell you, and they will tell you with absolute conviction on here and in the media, you are just not going to get a set of circumstances where you're going to get a worldwide global wealth tax, and therefore no matter where you go and no matter where you hide, you're going to be safe. Guys, let's let's plant this in the real world for a moment. That ain't gonna happen. And that gives these people the out. It gives these people the ability to up sticks and go and move somewhere else or relocate for tax purposes, however they want to do it, and save themselves a fortune on the wealth tax. So the first thing you're going to see is you're going to see high net worth people, I would suggest, leaving the country for pastures new, where they are not going to be as heavily penalised from a taxation perspective. That's the first one. The second one is you're going to get some people who, for example, because they're proactive in managing their tax affairs, might have their assets in trusts, they might employ accountants, lawyers, financial advisors, all these other people to protect their assets. If there's a wealth tax coming down the pipe, do you really think these people are going to sit around and wait for the taxman to come knocking and asking for a bigger slice? Or are we going to take proactive, preventative action as a means of making sure that what we have is as safe as it possibly can be? I would suggest that you probably would do that, and therefore it's not just about introducing a tax, it's potentially about looking at the entire taxation system and the legal system, because I'll bet your bottom dollar there's going to be some legal challenges around this, to make sure that the entire societal public finance system is set up in a way to continue to extract that wealth. That's a real challenge, and let's not underestimate how big a deal that is. Again, despite what some people, and I won't name names, but you can probably figure out who they are, and we'll come out and tell you that it will be so easy. Guys, it just isn't going to be, right? The final thing, of course, is you've got to ask yourself, well, if somebody's selling, in order for a sale to complete, there has to be a buyer. So the $1 million question, who buys it? If you're an ordinary person and you couldn't afford to buy the ordinary house that you're living in, how do we expect to structure these sales in a way that you can go and buy acres of land or huge chunks of businesses or properties that, you know, even at a massive discount, because we've got this, you know, we've got the national fire sale happening rather, that you can, how can you afford to participate in that, first of all? Because even, I would imagine for a lot of people, a 50% correction on a lot of assets will still be out of their reach. And that's not to beat them with a stick while they're down. That's an observation of fact. If you can't afford to buy a house in the centre of London, for example, because they're about £3 million or whatever they're worth, they're certainly very, very expensive, and you're an ordinary person with an everyday job, even if it corrects down, you know, you get a 2/3 correction on it, can you really afford a house that price? A £3 million house down to a £1 million house, a £1.5 million house down to only 500,000. I'm sure the average person will have, you know, no dramas picking up the bill for that. We really got to think about that, because if the average person's not buying it, who is? And the answer to that, guys, is it's probably either wealthy individuals that are more tax savvy than the person that's had to sell it because they've got better advisors or they've been more proactive, and they're going to go and sweep it up and find a way to put it in their tax efficient wrapper. Or number two, it's these large corporations that can then commercialize the asset. So for example, okay, I can't afford my £5 million house, I'm going to sell it, lo and behold, I've got no one to buy it. So a big, you know, real estate investment trust, for example, comes in, pays penny on the pound, and then rents it out. And we just exasperate the problem, because the whole idea was that we wanted the average person to buy it, but guess what? They can't afford to. Really, really challenging. Probably the same real estate investment trust that is owned by the bloke that's selling it, but that's a different question for a different day. What am I saying? Some things work really well in theory, but putting them into practice perhaps is a bit less straightforward and a bit less simple than people would have you believe. Just because someone comes out in the media and shouts louder than everyone else, it doesn't mean they're right. Only you can make that decision. Think really long and hard about what they're saying. Scrutinise it. Ask yourself, how does this play out in reality? And then go and make a really informed decision so that you ultimately are speaking from a position of knowledge, because knowledge is power, and you can set yourself up for real success accordingly. Guys, this is a really complicated topic. I'm not pretending to have all the answers, and I'm certainly not pretending that within about 10 minutes I've been able to give you everything that you need to know. But if you didn't know anything about wealth taxes before this, hopefully you've got a starter for 10, and you can go out and do some more research and contribute to that really important discussion that's happening at the moment. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe, because it helps me get the content out to people that potentially really need it. And this is all about giving people access to good quality information so they can make better decisions for themselves with respect to their personal finances. And by liking, by commenting, by sharing the video, you're playing your part in helping those people get access to the help that they potentially need. Thanks again. Enjoy your weekend. Speak to you soon.